Okay, yeah, so maybe Jason, you can start by sort of introducing yourselves and what it is you do at Riot.
So my name is Jason Yeh. I'm the head of eSports in Europe for Riot. And oversee kind of our eSport initiatives and efforts here in Europe.
Excellent, okay, and maybe first you can start by telling us, what it means for you guys to be hosting the World's quarterfinals in London.
Yeah. So we actually held, I think it was week 4 of the summer split last year here at the SSE Arena at Wembley. And it was just it was an incredible experience, the live fan engagement, the excitement around the matches, and so we really felt like doing Worlds in Europe, it made a ton of sense to come back to London and come back to this venue.
Excellent. And speaking of like London, England, the UK, how important is this sort of area to Riot?
Yeah. So UK is one of the kind of faster growing, largest markets in Europe for League of Legends, and so I think for us, it's really important to figure out more ways to make the game exciting and fun for players like at a local level. And I think esports has proven, especially in countries like the UK where sports is such a big part of the culture, I think the competitive element of esports makes a ton of sense. And so we're definitely interested in figuring out how to bring everything from the professional level like Worlds down to more local competitions in the UK to the players.
Speaking of sort of local competitions then, what are you guys doing? Because I know the League of Legends UK community is quite strong
Sure.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
What can you do to help those sort of small communities and things in the UK with product giveaways? What are you doing there?
So I think esports in general, there's a pretty big spectrum where the LCS and the international competitions like Worlds are kind of at the professional tier. The goal is to create a clearly defined path to pro, and that covers everything from so Challenger Series under LCS. Then we have some national initiatives. So like last year in the UK was part of the Four Nations tournament where different partners held qualifiers, and then we had kind of like a final for the region. And then going even lower, like collegiate scene in the UK is actually out of the other European countries, it's actually thriving in terms of people self-organizing into teams in universities and competing against each other. So I think that's definitely someplace we're looking at supporting, and going down even further to more grassroots organized play. I think there's a lot of different levels where we can hopefully create fun ways for players in the UK to compete.
So could that become potentially like an official thing? Because I know the guys at the National University Esports League, and they're really keen to grow it further. Is that something it could become an official Riot thing, or?
So from what I understand, like our League of Legends publishing team based in Dublin, like they do a lot of, there's a team focused on UK, and they do a lot to support partners like that, and also like Gfinity, ESL, etc. here in the UK. So I think at the end of the day, like figuring out how to, part of the path to pro is to create a clear kind of a connection between the different levels of competition, and so ideally, like competition that happens at a local level will help, whether it's entire teams or individual players, surface and become picked up into the professional ecosystem.
And sort of talking about UK esports then, it's got its critics. What would you say is sort of holding it back from producing more of these sort of top level players? I know there was one player in Worlds, but sadly gone out in H2K. What's holding it back, would you say?
I don't know if anything's actually holding it back. I think it's just the more we can focus on creating opportunities for players in the UK to compete against each other and to demonstrate that they're the best from this part of Europe, and that they have opportunities to compete in kind of pan-European tournaments and leagues. I think just better connecting like the scene here with the rest of Europe is something that we're trying to do as well in Spain and Germany and in France as well. So I think now that there's definitely a lot more focus on the UK in terms of like other games having more exposure and having good traction in terms of audience and players. So I think we definitely want to create ways to make esports a fun part of the league experience for players in the UK.
Okay, cool. And what would you say to UK players and teams that are sort of playing in ESL UK, or they're up and coming, and they're struggling between deciding what to do with their studies or to do this? It's quite a difficult conundrum. What would you say to like inspire those guys maybe?
I think becoming a professional gamer is a very it's kind of a long path leading up to it. It takes a lot of preparation, a lot of dedication, etc. So if it's like entire teams, like organizations competing in the local leagues, I would say use the local leagues like the ESL league in the UK or other event organizers in the UK to kind of use it as like a litmus test to see like how well are you guys doing? How well do you stand against like other teams in the region? And the better you do, the more opportunities you'll have to compete regularly and to make a more kind of consistent, viable living that isn't just based off of prize money, but is more based off of just the fact that you're competing in a lot of inconsistent kind of competitions. So I think it's still, the whole scene, not just UK, is still relatively early in that regard. And so I think like players and teams should like take a careful look at and see kind of how things are evolving as they invest more time and effort into being a team.
Sure, good answer. And I know that ESL UK have told me a bit of a bold claim that they think a world-class League of Legends esports team, or esports team in general, will emerge from the UK in the next 2 years. Do you agree with that, or?
So one of the 8 teams and the winner of the first season finals, I know a lot of players don't associate Fnatic with UK, but Fnatic is based in London. The organization is from the UK. They happen to have like multinational like players from different parts of Europe and parts of the world like competing in different games like on their teams. But that is one of the more recognizable esport brands in Europe, and it is from the UK. So I think doing more to help like both build a fan base locally and also build a brand across Europe is going to be a kind of a big opportunity for a lot of teams over the coming years.
Okay, cool. And just last few points then, will an EU team win Worlds?
I think that the EU teams have, I mean, if you've seen today, the kind of the home crowd cheering for them, so they definitely have the advantage of the kind of live audience, but at the end of the day, the best team will win. And I think the thing that excites me the most is the level of parity. Like if you look at the quality of the different regions, so teams from like 2 teams out of Taiwan made it into the group stages, 2 teams from Europe. So I think that it feels like the overall quality of professional competitive play across the regions is going up, and the gap is getting smaller. So I think that's really exciting, because then all the different regions kind of have a chance to see if their teams can be the last one standing at the end of the season.
I guess last thing I just thought of as well, obviously BBC are here today covering it online. What do you think needs to happen to make esports a bit bigger? You know, do you think more broadcasters will get involved and sponsors and so on?
I think it's amazing to see BBC here. I think having partners like BBC not only do live broadcasts but create other content kind of around esports, like helping players get a better understanding of like who these players are, who these teams are, like why should they care about them. Like that's only gonna help. And so leveraging whether it's their online platform, their television platform, is a great way to deliver like this content and this entertainment to hopefully more players, and more players who more league players will hopefully make esports kind of a part of their regular experience.
Excellent. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I guess the only thing is like we're super excited to be back here in London. I think the crowd here is amazing. They're incredibly loud, and I'm really excited to see kind of how loud they can get, especially for the EDG Fnatic match later this weekend.
Excellent. Thanks very much for your time, Jason.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.